right, welcome to our lead generation series. I was like, I cannot come up with what the series is called. Our lead generation series, Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Today we are talking about gathering or leveraging rather our leads, our listings for leads. I'll get it right at some point. I've done a lot of talking today. So anyways, we're gonna talk about how to leverage your listings for leads. So I've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. I usually recommend that you have 5 methods of lead generation. The first method should always be your database. The second is always going to be generating leads from your listings. Okay, the other 3 you get to choose, but those should be the top 2 methods that you're working and perfecting. Today we are going to cover how listings drive business. We're going to talk about the importance of using a for sale sign to drive phone calls, utilizing your listings for open house leads, even if open houses aren't one of your main lead gen methods. And we're going to talk about using that listing to up your marketing game. So as always, if you have questions or thoughts, feel free to throw them in the chat box. You can raise your little hand there in Zoom world. You can unmute yourself and just interrupt me. If you're watching this on replay, you can throw it in the comments or message me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. All right. So everything that you do in your business should be in an effort to acquire listings, right? Your business plan should cause you to be listing focused. And this is why. Number one, when you look at working with buyers versus working with sellers, your buyers are going to be more labor intensive, right? We've got to throw them in the car. We've got to go show them properties. We've got to drive all over creation. Who knows how many houses? Hopefully you're only showing 3 to 5 houses before writing an offer, but then you get multiple offers and then you're back to the drawing board again. So it's just more labor intensive. So by focusing on listings, you're going to have more time. And when you have more time, that's going to give you more time for appointments, which leads to more signed deals. The second reason that you should focus on listings is that your listings should drive leads into your business. I make it my personal goal from every listing to generate at least 3 legit leads. And if you effectively work your listings, they should become lead generating machines. And the 3 reason is oftentimes listings mean that you are getting double the transactions, because more often than not, your sellers are going to be buying another home. If it's local, you should absolutely capture that purchase transaction so that you get the sale and the purchase. And if they're not local, you should get the referral to the other agent wherever it is that they're moving to, right? So don't leave anything on the table, and make sure that you're asking the necessary questions of your sellers so that you know what their plans are and that you can help guide them and direct them along the right path. Any questions? All right. Sign calls. Anytime you have a listing, you should make sure that you have a for sale sign in the yard as soon as you are able. Okay, for most areas, that means that you're going to fall underneath the National Association of Realtors Clear Cooperation Policy, which states that if you're marketing the property to the public, it needs to be in the MLS within 24 hours of that public marketing. So the sign could go in the yard the day before you go live in the MLS. Okay, if your MLS does not participate in the Clear Cooperation Policy, then you can put a coming soon sign in the yard as early as you want. I usually recommend a couple weeks before the listing goes live. If your seller does not want a sign, we're going to use what we talked about yesterday, the IVEC, right? Investigate, validate, educate, and close, right? We're going to be understanding. We're going to empathize to find out the motivation, why, and then we're going to talk them into that sign. Okay, we want it in their yard for lead generation, but we need to sell it to them as it's going to help them sell their home, right? Let them know that the sign lets their neighbors know that their home is for sale, and that those neighbors may call friends and family to let them know that may otherwise not be looking at homes for sale, right? Or that sign also catches passerbys. So it's important to communicate that to our sellers. In addition to that, you need to think about your sign design. Okay. It should be easily viewed by a car driving by. And please don't forget to put for sale on your signs. I made that mistake once. I had signs made and they just had my information on it. It didn't actually say for sale. So I highly recommend making sure it says for sale on it. Your name and phone number should be on the sign. And some things that you may not have thought about is that people these days are afraid to have conversations. So you may want to put, instead of just call next to your phone number, you may want to put text, right? Like call or text, right? You maybe want to adopt a text to code, which is where you like text house to, 888332 for more details. Or you could have a QR code on that sign as well that they could scan, because we don't want people to be afraid to call your number. Okay. In addition, since we're talking about sign design, keep in mind, I mentioned your name should be on there, for sale should be on there. Your phone number should be on there, or method to reach you. In addition to that, make sure your DRE number is on there, your license number, and then also your brokerage logo needs to be on there to be in compliance with the Department of Real Estate. The other thing to keep in mind is that our statistics say that someone that can see that sign in the yard is going to sell their home, right? So using that knowledge, we're going to make sure that we connect with those neighbors that can see that sign. Okay. And remember that that sign is bigger than your listing. It would be really easy for you just to answer the phone and answer questions about your listing, but you need to treat every call like an exploratory conversation, right? It's not about your listing. It's about the caller. What's the caller looking for? I mean, the goal is hopefully that they are going to buy your listing, but if they didn't want that property, what are they looking for? Do they have an agent, right? What areas are they searching for? Have they been pre-approved, right? You want to take that call off your phone and get in front of those people. So we want to make sure we get as much information from them as possible before we get off the phone. And you want to set an appointment with them before you hang up. Okay, the appointment is either going to be to go see your listing, to go see another property, or the next time that you're touching base with them. Okay, don't underestimate the power of your sign. It might be a good idea when you have active listings to update your outgoing voicemail message so that if somebody calls in, they have a way that they can get the information about that listing, or that you address, hey, if you're calling about the listing, leave your name and number, or text me your name and number, and I'll call you back as soon as I'm done with my appointment, right? Something to that effect, so that you're capturing their information and getting permission to interact with them in the form of a phone call. Okay, you may also want to, like iPhones especially, I'm sure other phones also have the ability, but you can do shortcuts where you can have text on your phone. So by texting like the street number, let's say I had 244 Ford Road on the market. If I type in, if somebody's calling me, I can respond with a text message, and it could be, so I could have it set up to auto populate the second I type in 244. If you're calling about the listing on 244 Ford Road, here's the details. If you'd like to schedule a time to see that property, just respond to this text message, right? Something to that effect. Or if you have multiple listings on the market, it might be that you have like all the listings listed. If you're calling about one of these listings, let me know which one you're calling about, and I will get you all the details for that listing, right? So something that's going to cause them to start interacting with you. So it might be some good ideas in order to make sure that we capture that business and they don't just hang up and go to call the next person on the list. Okay, any questions about your sign calls? All right. The next step is open houses. Even if one of your methods of lead generation, right? We talked about 5 methods of lead gen. Even if one of those is not open houses, please don't miss out on the opportunity with your own listing, at least on the first weekend on the market. You should be holding your the open on your listing that first weekend on the market and use it as a marketing opportunity. Get the listing out there on social media, right? Advertising the open house, share with your database, right? Send an announcement out to your database to invite them to come by and visit. Ask them if they know anybody looking to buy in the area. You want to get that listing everywhere. You want to get the sign writers on the sign that announce the open at your listing so that the neighbors or those driving by don't open up their their Zillow app and contact some other agent. If they know there's an open house coming, they may hold off and they may just plan to come to the open house, and you're going to capture that business. Okay. And also, just like we teach for opens, when we're getting close to that open house, we want to go door knock around the property. Your goal is to get at least 40 doors knocked. So I would recommend doing at least 10 on either side of the property and probably 20 across the street. We're going to invite them to the open house. You could let them know that there may be increased traffic in the neighborhood. Maybe point out that this would be a great time to handpick their neighbors. Okay. I always have something that I leave behind that invites them to that open house. Because remember, we already talked about this, that sign in the yard, somebody who can see that sign is going to sell that house. So the more that we can get out there in the neighborhood, in the community, that we can be interacting with those people that might see that for sale sign, let them know about the open houses, just connect with them, build that relationship, the more likely they are to call you. Any thoughts on open houses? If you're curious what to do at the open house or how to follow up with those people after the open house or follow up with people after the sign calls, that's all part of the lead generation plan where we've already talked about it, but you do the like 5x1, which would be one contact per day for the first week. And then we roll them to an 8x8 where we're going to reach out to them once a week for the next 8 weeks. And then we're going to put them on that 19 to connect, trying to get them to respond to us again after that initial appointment. Okay. Some other things that we talked about, that I've talked about with some agents recently with regards to like sign calls and open houses, those cold leads that we don't know, right? So we consider a warm lead somebody that we know, right? A referral, a repeat customer, our circle of influence. And those cold leads are ones that we don't know, is that we should have a plan in place to market to those people, whether it be Zillow leads, whether it be open houses, whether it be sign calls, because we want to then drip on them about the importance of using an agent, right, in their home buying or selling process. We want to talk about how to successfully complete the home buying purchase, why we get pre-approved, send them out lender information, right? We want to be dripping on them that whole time. Once we've made contact with them, solidifying the fact that we are the expert in home buying and selling, that we have the keys they need to be able to get into their own home, and the importance of using an agent when buying or selling properties. So just some things to keep in mind, that we probably want to put something in place in that 5x1, the 8x8, or that 19 to connect, so that we're constantly dripping on them with this valuable information, showing them how valuable we are to them. All right. And then next, your listing should be a marketing machine. So first, remember that great marketing starts before the photos are taken. So when that listing is posted all over the internet, that listing represents you. So you want to make suggestions of things to change, furniture to move, decluttering that needs to happen. Also, super important, don't forget the landscaping and the curb appeal. People don't recognize the importance of curb appeal. I mean, we see it on like the shows on HGTV, but here's the reality. It's not just the first thing that people see when they pull up to the house. It's the last thing that they see as they drive away. It's often what people remember the most is what the front of that house looks like. So it's so important. I've been known to go to Home Depot and pick up those pre-made planters with different flowers in them to go throw on the front porch for like a pop of color, especially that first week on the market, because it just adds to that curb appeal. So make suggestions, make sure they've got a landscaper handy that can clean up the yard before photos are taken, before you go on the market. You want to rearrange furniture so that it flows well, right? So that people walk through that property, they don't trip over everything. We want the rooms to look spacious. So it might mean that we ask them to remove some dressers. Let them know that they need to clean off all their countertops, that you like minimalist attitude is kind of the idea that we go for when we start getting ready to put a listing on the market. Okay, you can enlist the help of professional stagers or design consultants that'll charge you like 150 bucks. If you're not good at that stuff, they don't have to like bring in furniture or anything, but they can just come do a quick walkthrough of the property and make suggestions about what that seller can do in order to get that property ready to go on the market. Okay. Worst case scenario, we want to bring in staging. If the house just really needs help, we've even brought in staging on properties where the sellers are still in the house. We took out some of their furniture and brought in some other furniture just so it's show nicer. Okay. Also, there's virtual staging now that you can do, like AI, and your photographer can do it for you, or you can even like log on and do it. And it does make a difference in how that house presents online and how it looks. Just make sure that you make that caveat that it is virtually staged so that they're not disappointed when they walk into the house.
Amy, if you recommend staging a home, do the sellers normally pay for staging?
Yeah, so if I am getting what I would consider for me a full commission, sometimes I will pay for the staging and sometimes I'll ask for the sellers to pay for it. It just kind of depends on what the commission structure is on that listing.
Okay.
How much would that typically run for, let's say, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath? Would you think maybe 1,500 square feet?
Yeah, so I believe the most recent quote that I heard is going to be right around like 2,000. It used to be about 1,500, but I think it's right around 2,000 to 2,500 now. And generally speaking, on like a 3-2, you're going to stage the living space, the master bedroom, and then some stuff in like the kitchen and the master bathroom. Generally, we usually don't stage the other 2 bedrooms because people can use their imagination there.
All right. Okay.
Yep. And oftentimes, so most of the time with listings, if they're occupied, I'm just going to utilize the seller's furniture that's there. Unless, of course, like I said, it just doesn't work with the house or it's super bulky and the house is kind of small and it just doesn't, it messes with the design of the house. Then we might recommend swapping it out. But otherwise, we're just going to use the seller's furniture. If it's vacant, it does show better with furniture. And especially if there's like some funky listings or house plans out there that it's like hard to see how furniture would even fit in like a living room or a bedroom because of the layout of it. Those are so important to have staged so that people can visualize how the furniture would fit. We lived in a house for a while that it was kind of like that. Like just looking at the room, it was like, I don't even know where you would put a TV in this house type thing. But when you had it staged, it made sense. So some things like that you want to pay attention to. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. On that note as well, please, I beg you, do not take your own photos. Hire a professional photographer. Okay. Your future sellers are looking at your listings online and that online presentation, and we want to make it sell. Not only or do we want to make it sell because of the fact that we want it to draw people in by having professional photos done, but we want it to be like our calling card to future sellers. So we want to make sure that it shines and make the photos appropriate, right? So if it's a huge property with a big lot, we are going to want drone photography versus just interior, exterior, regular photos. If it's a regular property, we probably don't need drone photography. And then keep in mind too, that we have that new app that's available to us that I demonstrated when I was in town called Cubicasa, which you can access through the Realty One group. And then that one, you can actually create your own floor plans, which was really cool. So it makes it really easy to create those floor plans, which I think are super handy for buyers looking at the property. So something to consider doing.
Is that on OneSuite?
Yeah, if you go to OneSuite, look for Cubicasa. I believe that's where it's at. And then it'll walk you through setting up your profile on there, and then you'll download the app.
Okay.
Yep, and you just take your camera, you just walk around the house, pointing it at kind of the wall, floor, and just do all the floor, do it like that. It walks you through the process. Super easy. It gives you the dimensions, the floor plan, the layout of the house. It's super cool.
Nice.
Okay. So now that we got staging, we got photos, you want to get the description going in the right way as well, right? So that marketing blurb is super important. We don't want the boring description of the features of the house, right? We don't want it to be like, oh, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in the Travis School District with pool, large yard, landscaped, right? That's boring. We want to make it stand out. We want to describe the lifestyle that you're going to have by living there, make it fun. We want to create FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And remember, we have the tool called AI now. So you can take that and say, hey, write a listing description for a 1,800 square foot house with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, swimming pool, RV parking, and then ask it to create that for you. You could even maybe use a prompt of describe the lifestyle of somebody living in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home with a swimming pool, right? And see what it comes up with. Like, be creative in your prompts to AI to help it create those blurbs.
Where do we get the AI again?
Yes,
Where is
it's
that?
chat. Just Google Chat GPT. The GPT.
Okay.
And play around with it. It's kind of fun to use. Right. But we want to make that marketing blurb fun. Sometimes what I do too, when I go to create a listing, is I go look at other similar listings that have sold over the last year or two. And I look at their blurbs and I pull ideas from their blurbs so that you don't have to like create it all on your own. You can like read things and be like, oh, that one sucks. Or, oh, that one was really good. I like that. I'm going to pull that into mine. Right. So you can get ideas from other listings. Okay. So now staging's done, photos are done, marketing blurb is done. We're getting it ready to go in the MLS. We want to get our marketing portion going on the property. I'm going to start by talking postcards, right? Because remember, we talked about the fact that we want to touch those potential sellers as much as possible. So we want to send out postcards. And I would recommend during your listing period, we're going to send out at least 3 postcards. One's going to be just listed, one's going to be under contract, and one's going to be closed. Okay, but it's not just going to be just listed. We want to spin our story, right? Don't create the typical card. Like for your under contract, we don't just want to be like under contract. We want to be like in contract over asking, multiple offers received, in contract in 3 days, right? Whatever that story is that we want to share that would make a potential seller want to call us to list their home, that's what we want to do, right? So like, did you put it in contract over asking? Did it go faster than the average home? Did it go with no contingencies? Right? What's going to grab that future seller and want them to call you? We're going to make sure we share that story. And I would recommend sending at least 100 postcards around your listing. And for each postcard, for each listing, we want to send it to the same 100 people. So in one suite, if you go to one design or one creative, you can design your postcard, share your story on there, and then it'll actually select the neighbors for you. You let it know how many people you want to send postcards to, and it will select those people for you. Makes it super easy. You don't even have to come up with the addresses. You just plug it in there and hit send. Super simple. So I would send 100 just listed. I would send 100 under contract, and I would send 100 closed to the same 100 people each time. In addition to those postcards, and keep in mind too that when we talk about marketing, which we've talked about before, but we want our marketing to be consistent. So the postcards should look consistent. They should have the same font, the same colors, your same photos. As you know, for each postcard, we're going to change the story. You might change the layout just a little bit, but they need to look similar because we want them to recognize this is coming from the same person. In addition to that, let's talk social media, right? And again, the colors, your photo, The fonts should all be consistent on what you're using on your marketing materials with what's also people are seeing on your social media. And here again on social media, we want to stand out. So you're going to spin the story of the listing to drive interest and interactions. You want to make sure to share that listing on your page. You want to share it on your business page, and you want to share it on all the groups that you can find that are housing related, like the what's going on in this county group or what's going on in this city. If there's a neighborhood group, right, share it in there. And then we also want to think bigger, right? Who is commute distance from your area? Where are buyers moving from to your area? So whether it's commute distance, like if you were in the Vacaville, it might be sending that listing and posting it in groups out of the Bay Area or out of Sacramento. You may also want to consider, gosh, who else has military bases, right? Where are military members transferring to our area from? And you may want to boost those posts in those cities as well around those Air Force bases. So just kind of keep that in mind that we want to think outside the box to capture more potential buyers and sellers. You also want to find all of the housing groups on social media, right? Like the Solano County open houses and the Travis Air Force Base, rent and sale homes. I don't remember what it's called. And wherever there might be houses, like post it in there, not just in our area, but those other areas where people might be moving from. Okay. And as we post it and share it on social media, the same thing with like the postcards, we want to be able to share that story as we move through the transaction, right? Point out how you're excelling in each step, right? When it went on market, maybe the appraisal came in at value, maybe all the contingencies were removed. Now you're cleared to close, right? So there's so many different posts you can do for each listing to keep you on track and keep you front of mind of people of, oh my gosh, not only is she listing houses, but man, she's good. She's getting value on appraisals. Those contingencies are getting removed, right? So all those things and share that story. In addition to posting, interact with those that interact with your posts, right? So if they comment on your post, if they like it, like message them, dig for more information. Are they looking to buy or sell a home? Are they a neighbor? Your goal is to turn them into your buyer or seller. So you want to create posts that's going to get them interacting and build that relationship with you. Okay. And the last piece of marketing that you may want to consider would be circle dialing. So remember that we want to stay compliant with the TCPA. That's the do not call registry. But getting the numbers and then calling to solidify your name and relationship with those that you're also sending the postcards to is going to help give you the leg up. Because now not only are they seeing your name and face on a postcard, but and they see you sharing your story. But now they've talked with you or heard your message on their voicemail, right? And then also they've met you in person because we also knocked on their door to let them know about the open house. So we're solidifying yourself as someone who's going to do the work to get their house sold. You are earning their business each step of the way. Anybody have questions about that? All right. So that's the end of what I have for leads from listings. So remember, we want to be a marketing machine. We want to make sure that we're hosting those open houses to be lead generation machines. We want to make sure to have that sign in the yard and that we answer our phone calls so that we can generate leads either for our listing or for other buyers or sellers in that neighborhood. Questions, thoughts, or ahas before we wrap up for today?
I had a question, but I forgot. So I may, if I could just text you when I remember.
Absolutely. Feel free to text me when you think of your question.
Great.
I was just thinking something too, and now it's gone, so I don't know. Create systems and processes around your listing. So take time to take the information that we talked about today and actually put it in writing as part of your marketing plan. or part of your like pre-listing plan of how we set up our houses for success and what we do and how we market so that we're consistent in each and every listing that we have so that we can drive business into our database. Put it in writing. All right, fabulous. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I appreciate it. We will be back next week. Let's see what we have next week. Monday, the 20th, we have, we're covering the SSIA and the trust advisory. So the TA form. So the short sale information advisory is the SSIA, and then the trust advisory on Monday. On Tuesday, we have buyer contract to close. So we talked about the buyer presentation this week. We will wrap that up with the buyer contract to close. On Wednesday, we have a fabulous training from Old Republic Title Company talking about assumptions when it comes to selling properties and assuming different types of loans. And then next Wednesday evening, we are going to loop back around. I skipped the lead gen class where we were talking about social media. So on Wednesday, we're going to loop back into social media lead generation. Dun, dun, dun. All right, we'll see you next week. Have a fabulous evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.